Recording in progress.
I'd like to welcome everybody to the March edition of the Keeping Up with Technology Club. I've sent out some topics for tonight that we can discuss after we go through our open forum. With that being said, would someone like to open up the floor with the first question of the evening? Oh, this is a tough crowd here. And it looks like Tom O'Connor, we lost your video feed again.
Okay, well, I see what, I'll give it back.
There you go. All right. So does someone have a question to pose to the group? Dennis does.
Let me move that iPhone farther away so it hopefully doesn't interfere. So I got Macrium Reflect downloaded. I went into I opened it, I created a rescue disk on a flash drive. And then I was opening the program to look at options and stuff. And I can see where it says, to, back up your media. I remember in a meeting further back, Tim had mentioned find the option that says verify your backup as you do it. But there's a number of other screens, and I'm wondering if I need like compression, and there's like 5 or 6 screens. I'm wondering, do I need to touch anything else or just leave standard?
No, what you do, there's 2 settings. Okay. Number 1, when you say I'm going to do a backup of the image, one of the first screens that pop up is to say, what do you want to back up? So you're marking what drive to back up. Then it goes to a second screen, and you have to designate where are you going to put the image.
Okay.
Like in your front pocket, your back pocket. At any rate, then down in the bottom left, there's an advanced feature. It gives you several different options. The only one you really are concerned with is auto verify, which I think is the 3rd or 4th item.
Okay.
And it has a check box. You put a check mark in it, and that one backup will automatically verify when you're done. Now, if you want verify to always work no matter what, then you go up to the top toolbar, and there's other options. Under other options, the first one is to create your rescue media on a flash drive. The second one is for the verify option, and you put a check mark there, and it will always do a verification on backup.
Okay, got it.
Dennis, did you get the free or the paid version?
I got the free. You guys were telling me in a previous meeting, Major Geeks had it, and Drew during the meeting actually went and found it, and he sent me a chat with the direct link. So it was on Major Geeks, version 8.0 point something like 775 or 0775, something like that. Oh, and one more question. So if I understood what Tim was saying previous meeting, I can then take that rescue media, stick it into my Linux box, boot from that, and it will give me an option somewhere to create a backup of my Linux box.
It defaults to a tab near the upper left to restore a backup because that's its base function.
Okay.
To the left of that tab is to create a backup. You click that and it looks just like it's running on your desktop.
And when I have a, I'm going to get a solid state drive or another drive for the backup, do I have to format that in advance or no?
Yeah, you have to format your drive that's going to receive the backup. Now, on the restore rescue media that you create on the flash drive, the settings about auto verify, you have to set them on that as well
Okay.
because it's now a portable version.
And the format I'm going to put on the Linux for the backup drive would be not FAT32, but something else.
No, you can have any kind of a drive whatsoever as your backup media. You can have an NTFS formatted drive. It doesn't care. It's just says, I will use any media you have, whatever format it's in, just about, and it will store all images there. But
But it has to be formatted.
if you're, yeah, well, you
Something.
have to do the formatting in advance on any drive that you ever use for backup media. However, if you're going to use it on a laptop, for example, and or you're going to use it on the Linux, my suggestion is you create a folder per machine, identifying that machine, and all the backups that you have for that machine go in that one folder automatically. So you're always selecting the right folder at the time you're specifying the backup for that
Okay.
machine, and the new image will go right where it's supposed to be.
Okay. So format in advance, create the folder in advance, and just point to it right there.
Right.
Got it. Okay.
And that's
Okay. I'm
on
gonna,
that second screen of the backup. You have to tell it the destination, and it's got a little black folder on the right side in about the middle of the screen. And you click on that, and it helps you find the backup device and the folders that may exist, and which folder do you want to have the backup image put in.
okay.
And it's that simple.
Okay.
You always
Okay.
got to check that because, especially when you're using the backup media for multiple devices, it's going to be different for every machine.
But yet I can use that one rescue media on a Linux, on any other laptop.
Absolutely anything.
Okay. Okay. I'm good.
Thank you. But I do have a question since we're on Macrium Reflect. When you're doing a backup of your system, one of the options that gives you while it's doing the process, it says, do you want to hide the screen? So if you click on hide the screen, Macrium Reflect goes in the background as it should. How do you get that back?
You have
Because it,
your
go ahead.
Alt Tab. Anything that's running on the system, even if it's in background, should bring it back up.
It's not. And
Oh,
that's
it's
why I
not.
asked that trick question. I'm right now at the moment, I'm doing a backup using Macrium Reflect. And I told it to hide the screen. Now I'm trying to get back to it to see the backup in action, see the status of it, blah, blah, blah. Yet I can't. I even went and tried to start Macrium Reflect, see if that would bring me back into the application. It is not.
Check
So
your
it's still going, but I
check
just can't find it.
check your taskbar icon for the Macrium Reflect backup that's running, and see if it will give you the image.
It does not, but maybe it's
Okay, here's what the program will do. It has a keyboard shortcut:
okay.
Control Alt M. That's a Macrium Reflect shortcut.
Control-Alt-M. Ha, it did not work. Why is it not working? I guess I'm being the unusual one. I just did that and it didn't work. So, and I believe it's still going because I'm watching my hard drive flash. So it's still running the process.
Otherwise, just look for the Macrium icon in the system tray, hidden icons area.
Yeah.
It will be hidden. And click it, right click to select show.
Okay. So where do we go? I'm looking. There it is. Okay. There it was. It was in the hidden icon tray. And now I'm able
Tray
to.
icon. Yeah.
Thank you. I was able to find it there, click on it, and it brought up the status of what we're thinking for. Thank you very much for helping me with that.
Well, that ends tonight's program then.
That's it. We're done. We can go home now.
Yep.
We are home.
We can skip all 9 of our topics.
Right.
10 topics.
Who else has got a question for us to pose out to the group? Wayne.
Yeah, I had interesting experiences last weekend. We were down in Texas and we rented a car, and I usually use my iPhone with the map on it to get around. And so I had taken some of my cables for this iPhone. And of course, this new iPhone has got USB-C and not the USB-A. And this rental car had a USB-A plug. So I had an adapter that went from C to A. I plugged the thing in and it pops up on the screen, overload.
Overload.
So I went on to AI and asked a question, what's going on? Well, come to find out that a lot of these cables that you have for the phone are only for charging. They don't have all the data capability. And so it was telling me that you have to buy this special cable that's got the data capability of transferring.
Oh.
And of course, this particular car, a lot of the cars that I've rented, I've used Bluetooth.
That's a very classic problem. I'm not joking when I say that.
Yeah.
Because I've had people in the past with Android phones. And bottom line is you have cheap cables or adapters that are only for power charging.
Yeah.
And then you have full data cables that cost more money. And there's also adapters that are fully capable. And that's what you got to get. I know because occasionally, and it's very rare, I have to get a photo off of an Android phone that I took a picture with. And I'd say 9 out of every 10 cables I have are charging cables. And I had to get a hold of another data cable because I couldn't find my one data cable that I already had. So instead of getting one, I got two. So there's a third one around here that I always had, but it's a friggin' headache. And I'm not kidding when I say it's a friggin' headache because it seems to only happen on the Androids. I haven't heard of this issue on iPhones.
Well, the thing is, this is the first time I've ever had this problem in renting cars, because a lot of the times I use the Bluetooth. In this particular vehicle, the Bluetooth only worked on telephone and playing music, but it didn't work with using the data from the.
Did this rental offer? Did they use CarPlay?
Yeah.
Well, then it should have integrated because CarPlay will come across.
It did. But the problem is, as soon as I plug the phone in, it overloads the system because it's not, the cable wasn't data capable of transmitting the data from the phone to the car for the map.
So something else you could also try is take the cable on the USB side and flip it. So, if it goes, USB-C is universal in terms of direction. However, sometimes the manufacturers don't put the data in the right spot. So if you just unplug it, rotate it 180 and plug it back in, see if that works.
Now,
it could be finicky.
I've never had that problem before. This particular car, and also the car, so I finally ended up using the mapping system on the car, and it's using TomTom. You ever heard of TomTom?
What?
This is a 2025 automobile, and it's archaic. It's a Mitsubishi. I think they're using old parts.
Okay.
I've never had this problem with using my iPhone on these automobiles, and most of them use Bluetooth.
Yeah.
But this Bluetooth only works, and I come to find out in this car, the Bluetooth only works on the phone, for the phone dialing and talking or playing music, but it was not capable of using the mapping.
So they did not integrate CarPlay fully into that car.
No. So I know what kind of an automobile to never rent again.
Well, or you need to go and buy another cable. Dennis?
Well, when I got home, I found a cable that I have that's designed for that.
And put that in your travel bag now.
Right, I did.
Okay, Dennis?
Kind of related to this, at a previous meeting, I was asking Ed, you see, I had bought two devices. I bought a little, like a brick that is an air compressor to blow up the tires on your car or whatever. And I bought another separate brick that will jumpstart your car. And in both of them, I found that they need USB-C. And I didn't have really much USB-C around the house. So I was asking Ed about, these little adapters you plug into the wall and then you can put in USB-C, or you can convert a USB-A to a USB-C. So I was reading stuff online, and maybe you can tell me if what I was reading online is wrong or right. But some sites were saying that the little connectors like Tim is showing, some people said that those things, if the ones you get are too cheap and expensive or not made by a good company, they can actually cause damage, which I don't know if I believe it. And they said get a cable instead. They say a cable is better than the little thing, and I don't know if that's true or not.
I'm not
Well,
going to
Wayne
dispute.
to further that thought, Wayne did say he used the adapter, and when he plugged it in, he got an overload.
Yeah.
So that would further what you were just saying, Dennis. It would support that it's possible you're going to get too much juice coming through because it's not designed as well.
Well, it was strictly trying to charge my phone instead of trying to use the data. That's because it wasn't designed for that. Their Apple CarPlay wasn't, like you said, fully functional.
Now, a USB-C to a USB-C cable will allow more electricity or juice to run through the cable than an A to C. Keep that in mind too. So if you want to do any type of high-speed charging on a device or high data transfers, you want a C to a C.
But let me ask, Tim. Tim was showing some. Now, let me say this. About a week ago, I was at the dollar store, and,
That's the mistake.
and they had a 2-pack of those little connectors like Tim was showing. So did I? And I didn't use them. So should I literally just throw those away and not do that, or what's your experience, Tim?
It varies because now I got mine through eBay, but it's a case where you can get too cheap, and I would say that dollar store one was a two for $1. That sounds suspicious that it could be junk, but what you would have to do is you'd have to test something that is not going to likely get damaged, or if it does get damaged, it's insignificant because it's like a junk item to begin with. But generally speaking, uh, the adapters seem to work fine, at least for me. I don't use them very often. I do have A to C cables and C to C cables also. And I even use them very sparingly because I most of what I need just needs the Type A in almost all my computers. But I do have like laptops in particular that do use the C, and it's advantageous to use it when the situation calls for it.
Well, I was using a C to C cable that had a C to A adapter that I plugged on the end that I plugged into the A
Right,
on the car.
right. That's
And that's when you got
very
the overload?
Pardon?
Is that when you got the overload warning?
Yep, yep.
Okay.
that's a very common cable type for both USB housings that you would plug in, like for backups, and also some other devices. Where if you want the C, you take off the adapter for the A and just plug the C directly in.
Yeah, yeah.
That's very common.
Well, most of the new cars now only have C USBs on them, but this automobile had two USB A's. Didn't have any USB C's, and this was a 2025 automobile.
But it's also a Mitsubishi,
Yeah.
which I thought Mitsubishi was not being made in the United States.
I don't know.
I don't know. Okay, I don't know.
It was a rental car that came from Maine down in Texas.
Okay. Moral of the story, Dennis, don't go shopping for your cables at the dollar store.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm not saying you need to spend big bucks, but the dollar store is not the best place to buy cables from.
Let me explain. Let me explain. My wife went into the Hallmark store, and right next to that was the dollar store. And I didn't want to really go in the Hallmark store to look at cards, so I just walked in the dollar store just to walk around, and I saw it. So
Okay.
I didn't go there looking for it.
Yeah, I would kind of do what Tim was doing. Is you need at least one or two reputable cables to have in your arsenal, to have in your back pocket. The charging only cables that are floating around out there often come with devices that only need charging, like motion detected lights that you put underneath your cabinets or in closets or something, or pucks. They'll take a USB-C cable because that's the new charging vehicle that they're using. So they're readily out there. I've got dozens myself that I've accumulated, but I have to keep those charging only ones separate from the data cables. So it's a good idea to like indicate them or get ones that are color coded, or they'll put all of them in the junk pile. Anyone else on this topic? Very good. Next question, new direction. None. Oh, come on, guys. Okay, if we got no questions, we could go into some of the things that I sent out for us to discuss tonight in our meeting. I came up with a whole bunch of topics that we could go through. And the very first one I had is a thing to discuss: is bigger always better? And so I thought we'd just discuss in general, is bigger, like a bigger screen better? Is a bigger hard drive better? Or a bigger laptop? Is that better for you? So any opinions would people like to discuss on the pros, of course, on a bigger screen is you get more real estate to put your stuff on to see it. The bad part is it takes up a heck of a lot of space on your desk, and you got to have room for it. Plus, you got to be able to drive the data to it, meaning you have a PC or a machine that's capable of supporting that. Most machines can, but I guess some of the older ones may not be able to fill out the screen as well. Anyone want to comment on a bigger screen versus a smaller screen?
Well, usually the older ones don't have at least 1080p or greater resolution. That's why they cannot fill up the whole screen. So that's the cause of the old machines, especially like laptops. As far as is bigger always better? Well, most of your machines up until recently would come with on new machines 1 terabyte storage drives. And the funny thing is, some people will use that up and need to enlarge it to like a 2 terabyte or a 4 terabyte. But the majority of people can't even fill up 1/4 of the capacity of the 1 terabyte drive that I have done service with. As far as a larger screen, with age, which is what most of us are having right now, bigger can be better because it may give you better vision of what you're looking at on the screen than a smaller, more compact screen.
Bert?
I have had some experiences. I have a larger screen plus my laptop screen, so you have to get used to the mouse pointer because the large screen isn't to the side, it's to above. And that confuses people a bit. But I had somebody else who got in trouble in the same way by having the second screen, where they did something where all of a sudden the laptop used the second screen as the default screen. And so when they went to start up their computer again, it couldn't find the settings anymore. It was on the second screen and not on the first screen, which confused that person considerably.
Yeah.
So you have to be careful if you have a second screen, be sure to shut down any apps that are on there when you shut down the computer. So make sure you shut it down first. But in this case, because in the settings it got stuck to say the second screen was the default screen, you couldn't get rid of it until you unplugged the monitor and then worked on the laptop to switch the setting back to the laptop as a default screen.
Well, if it's a laptop, you usually have an F key on top that allows you to cycle through your primary screen, your secondary screen, or both.
Well, that's true, but when you're trying to start up and go to settings and you can't get there, it certainly confused that person.
Okay, so that is a different topic, though, than what I was driving at about screen size, going with a bigger screen versus you're discussing having a second screen.
Well, of course, having a bigger screen, they seem to promote the idea where you could have split screen. So you got two different apps on the screen at the same time.
Okay.
And Windows 11 has that tool that you can pull up. But I find that in my case anyway, I need the big screen because I can see better.
Mm-hmm.
Now, do you run the big screen at a reduced resolution or
No,
magnification? You know, and one of the settings you can do is you can magnify to 125% of the size, or you can reduce it.
right. It depends what I'm looking at, but otherwise it's just the default.
Okay.
The other thing is I haven't figured out a way to change the brightness on the external screen, even though I can change the brightness on the monitor on the laptop. It doesn't change the brightness on the external screen.
Okay.
Just something to be aware of.
What about hard drive? Bert, lower your hand. What about on hard drives, having a bigger hard drive versus a standard one that came in your thing? How is that not good?
Well, as I think Tim said, he's seen and I've seen people with these huge internal drives, and they never fill them. They never come anywhere near. Of course, with an SSD, if it's half full or less, you might have some performance improvement, some increase in the lifespan of the SSD.
Mm-hmm.
But really leaving an SSD half full or half empty in this day and age is wasting a pretty valuable piece of real estate.
Yes, if you're buying it at today's prices
Yeah.
or future prices. If you bought it, in previous times and it's just going to waste, well, it's going to waste, and you kind of knew that. I guess the same logic would be if you bought a big spinning hard drive and only put 25% of it being used, you're wasting 3/4 of the drive just doing nothing.
With mechanical hard drives, if you don't use them, if you don't use some of the sectors, you can get into some performance issues.
Mm-hmm. Okay. You said performance issues, like what? It'll slow you down?
The physical components have to be exercised in order to continue to be able to move smoothly from one part of the drive to the other.
Okay. Dennis?
That's mechanical drives only.
Right. Dennis?
So are we kind of talking about not drives with the operating system, but like backup drives to
No, it could be any drive. It could be the one with your OS.
Okay. Well, I was going to say if it was about backup drives, it seemed to me rather than buying a great big one,
Well,
it
generally,
seems like I could buy two smaller ones.
the
If it was going to be possibly an issue filling them up, buy two smaller ones to kind of mirror each other if you're not going to fill up a big one. And that way, if one goes, you still have another one left kind of thing. That works.
when it comes to the backup drive, you're somewhat better with the mechanical drive still because they retain the data better. When you use solid state drives for the backup, if it's a temporary backup or you're going to move it to a spinning hard drive, that's okay too. But if that SSD sits around long enough, it will discharge the electrical capacity to hold the data to the point where it becomes very corrupt and unusable. So that's one factor on backup drives. On the primary drive of your system, where your operating system, your main programs, and your most recent data files, that you want on the fastest drive that computer can handle. So if you have an old system that uses a mechanical spinning hard drive, change it to a SATA drive and it will run faster, up to 10 times faster response time. On the other hand, If you have a machine that's a little newer that has M.2 drives, some of them will still take SATA drives that are M.2, and some will take only NVMe high-speed type drives, and there are a rare few that will take either media, M.2 SATA or an M.2 NVMe drive. Always pick the NVMe if you can, because the faster you have the operating system, the programs, and your data read writes take place, the better off and happier you're going to be to begin with. When you're doing backup or auxiliary storage within the computer, such as a desktop, any speed will do.
As another way of thinking about bigger is bigger better, sometimes it can work against you when you're upgrading down the line. If you started out with a small drive, it's easy to clone your drive across to a larger drive, but it is it's much more difficult to go the other way around. That is, if you had a terabyte drive and you need to clone and go down to a 500 gig because that's all you could find available at the time you need to buy it, or whatever the reason is, scaling that terabyte down to 500 gigs can be problematic to get it to clone across properly. So that can work against you.
Well, one thing about that, and that's a good point of going down, because I've done that a couple times recently, and that is if you go in Windows, whether it's 10 or 11, do a right click on the start button. You then select disk management. Find the drive listed and click on, say, the C drive partition. And it'll give you an option to shrink it. And it gives you the ability to shrink it up to a maximum. And it will do all the heavy lifting for you. The only thing you have to do is the other partitions that are to the right of the C partition, you have to use a partitioning program to move them over. And that way you can shrink it down to its absolute minimum. The problem is, don't do it to the point where you're going to have problems having too little space in the C drive. You never want to exceed 60% capacity of the C drive. Yeah, that's it there. If you right click on the drive, C drive there. Right click.
And then I can shrink.
Shrink. Yeah,
Shrink.
click that.
Or extend, depends upon what's available to me.
You'll get another screen.
And if I do querying volume to be able to shrink, it's going to do some calculations to see what it can do.
Yeah, and it's trying to determine how much it can shrink it by. But what it doesn't tell you, in the new image, how full is the image? That's what it doesn't tell you.
Right.
And you can actually end up with less space. And once you exceed 65% capacity of the C drive, it begins slowing down your computer until it literally can stop working.
Now, is bigger always better on a TV?
No, I don't think so.
I do. Come on, a 40-inch versus a 75?
I'm on a 42, and I...
you poor guy.
No,
you need a bigger screen.
You can't fit in the location where the TV's at anything bigger than about 45 to 46 inch.
Okay, I'm just saying, in a general term, Is a bigger screen on a TV better than a smaller screen?
I'm,
And anyone want to say a smaller screen on a TV is better? I want to hear the argument.
I don't see any problem with it. I've seen the bigger screens, and they don't give me anything that I particularly am interested in, other than taking more money out of my pocket.
It depends on how close you're going to be sitting.
Yep.
Yeah.
If you're going to be sitting very close to the screen, you're not going to want as big a screen.
Right.
Right.
It's kind of going under that 10-foot experience. How 10 feet away, how big can your screen be? The further back you sit, the bigger your screen could be to fill in the blank. If you've got 15 feet, then you got plenty of room. Dennis?
Well, I remember many years ago, you had picture in picture on a TV. So on some of these newer TVs, I think they have that again, or even the ability to split your TV screen into two panels. I think I read about that. And if that's the case, then I would agree. The big screen, you can have two big side by side.
I mean, come on, you want to see the Bears play, you got to have it on a big screen, or you want to see the Blackhawks. Big screen really does make it much better.
Not when they're not playing good.
Well, that's a different story. Anyone else want to discuss this bigger is better or not? No. Okay, we could go on to number two. Streaming versus cable TV. So, first, cable TV was what? First, it still is very expensive to have cable TV. But I think the streaming companies have really gotten with it, and you can load up your streaming services to the point where it's similar in pricing to what you were paying on cable, probably not as much, unless you got a basic cable package. If anyone want to elaborate on this a little more, since I don't have cable, I cannot just go into it very well. So someone else can educate us a little better.
I have seen many YouTube videos of a guy that covers TV and streaming and cable TV. They're merging or going out of business for cable. So basically, you're going to be stuck with subscriptions to streaming services. The bad part is a lot of people haven't got a real clue all the subscriptions they are paying out on every single month. And it can become a big surprise when they find out I've got umpteen services and I'm shelling out maybe several $100s a month, and I'm not using most of it.
That's an uneducated consumer who signs up and doesn't know to turn it off. The one thing that's great about streaming is you can turn it off. You can unsubscribe in a heartbeat from anything.
That's right.
So therefore, the right way to handle it is you subscribe to a channel when you want to watch something in particular. When you're done watching it, unsubscribe. Turn it off for a couple of months, turn it back on. Of course, they get us with these wonderful promotions that they've been doing, especially during Black Friday or something like that, where you'll get a thing like Disney or something for $5 or $4 a month, significantly cheaper than their normal rate.
Yes.
They catch you on that and they get you caught in. Not bad. Anyone else? Go ahead, Bob.
Another thing that streaming services are doing now is they're offering themselves as bundles of services. And sometimes that's a good deal, sometimes not. There also are streaming bundles that are available with some cable tiers. And Comcast definitely has a few options. But you got to grab some of those within a certain number of days or months of the time you first establish your service. Otherwise, the deal expires.
Okay. So the other thing that you lose when you go from cable to streaming is in cable you have a unified experience. The interface is the same, no matter where you're going with surfing through their system. If you have streaming, each provider has their own interface, and you have to get accustomed to it on how they're going to display what they're going to have as their value. That is, like Netflix has a different interface than Disney does, which has a different interface than Hulu. Well, Hulu is not the right one. But trying to give you an idea here is that they all have different interfaces, and you got to get accustomed on how to find things in those interfaces. It may be cumbersome if you're not accustomed to adapting to it. Yes, no? Am I wrong?
I agree with that. It's all over the place, and it's kind of like computer BIOS. There's no set standard. It's just a basic input-output operation for the computer to be able to boot up an operating system. With streaming services, whatever you want to design, it's just like a regular website. Look at all the different websites you go to on a daily, weekly basis. They're all different.
I'd like to get just a quick poll on who here is using cable. So hands up on cable. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 people are still 5. 4. Still using cable. How many have switched from cable to streaming? Just 2 of us. Okay.
I changed mine.
Bert, you're doing cable and streaming? Did I see your hand up on both, Bert? Yes.
Yeah. Well, for instance, I have I have Roku. I have, different things. I get Paramount through my delivery service from Walmart, and I have cable.
And it works for you?
You can only look at things so much in a day.
That's right. Your eyes can only be in one spot at a time, generally.
But it does let you, be able to see a lot of different things if you want.
Right.
But I actually see most of that on my iPhone.
Okay.
And I can take that, even though it's a small screen, I can take it with me in different rooms or whenever I want to be able to see any of those things.
Right. Dennis?
A third, maybe not a full option, but over the air. I've got over the air antenna here and got one at my brother's house. He actually doesn't have cable or streaming. He uses his over the air from Chicago. He gets a lot of channels. I mean, you get all the major ABC, CBS, NBC, WTTW 11, and he gets a lot of other channels as well that broadcast from Chicago anyway.
Right. Now, I didn't bring up OTA because it's not an on-demand thing. OTA is pump it out and you got to watch it when it's there.
Yeah.
Traditional TV. OTA is free. One of the things you want to be aware of on OTA is that there is two tuner technologies that are out there. That is the ATSC 1.0 and the ATSC 3, which is the next gen. The 1.0 had a resolution. Now, someone can help me on this. I think, is it 720p or 1080? I don't remember which it is.
1080.
It's 1080. But the next gen signal is actually 4K. So to get that on the next gen transmitters that are out there, and we do have several of them in the Chicago market that are broadcasting in next gen signal, you got to have a new tuner for it, and that is usually coming in on the larger big screen TVs. You will not find it on a 55-inch or smaller TV. because I've been looking for it on a smaller TV. I wanted to get a next gen, but you can't find them. They're only putting them on the bigger screens these days. So you might say, well, why do I want that next gen? Because it's going to come in with better audio, Dolby Atmos, 4K, and you can pause and rewind on your TV from the over-the-air broadcast. So you have more capabilities on the next gen signal, but you got to have a TV that's capable of it and be in the market.
I think.
Anyone else want to comment about OTA?
I think on SC3, if I remember correctly, there if they get it standardized and really functioning well, they may allow on-demand type presentations as well.
Dennis, did you know about the next gen? No.
No, I did not.
Okay, so I guess it's a key on how old your tuner is that you're using. If you're using a separate tuner box, you're not going to get it. If you have a newer screen TV that's a big screen, you may have that capability. And you'd have to do a rescan on from your OTA antenna to see what channels come in, and it'll identify them on your guide. It'll say next gen.
Well, I can tell you that I can get 110 different digital channels or different signal stations on my antenna.
Right.
But
in the Chicago market, we've got loads.
Oh, yeah. But of the 110, I can tell you that only about half of them I can actually look at. You know, a lot of them are just blank because they're unrecognized signal, which is probably what you're talking about.
Not what I'm talking about, but I do agree with you. Some of them, I don't know why they come in as blank or not enough information on there. It could be placeholders that they are holding those frequencies and they have to transmit something on them because they don't want to lose them. They got the licensing for them. There's a lot of geopolitics that come in the FCC spectrum, if you will.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. And I can tell you that my antenna is not pointed toward downtown. I've found the best way to do it. My building, the window that I have is pointing west.
Mm-hmm.
And I figured out how to do it just right. I get real strong signal for all my stations because I have some nice, some nice metal buildings to the west of me. So I have it deflecting off of them.
Okay. There is an app, since we discussed that, there's an app that you can load on your phone that's called Antenna Point. And that one will, if you pull up the app, it'll give you like a radar type image, and you rotate the phone around and it'll coordinate with the GPS information. You'll be able to see what antennas are within your proximity, and it'll show you how far you are away from them, and it'll tell you which way to turn your antenna to receive the maximum amount of signals from those antennas. So it's a free app. It's called Antenna Point.
Okay.
I did it manually, but I found them.
Yeah. Well, because I travel, I go camping, and I'm often having to set up my antenna to watch TV when I'm camping, and I don't know where the antennas are that are transmitting. So I use this app all the time when I'm camping, because then I know, okay, turn the antenna this way and I'll get the signals from whatever city that is. So
Yeah.
Good one to know.
Sure. Oh, yeah. Yeah, one thing I found also with the antenna signals, it's not always the most powerful signal that's the best. What is it? The MeTV signal that I get from two different locations, or from downtown, of course, but on what was it, on 26-2 and on 23-1. 26-2 is a 5-bar signal, 100% quality. Is not as sharp as the 23-1. It's a 4-bar signal, but the picture is much sharper on the 4-bar signal.
Okay.
Yeah, that's something Tom just said that I didn't understand. Like on my brother's TV, he uses it more than I do, the over the air. When he goes through the channels, there's duplicates, and I never really understood why there's duplicates. Like MTV but there's other duplicates. I didn't know why there was duplicates on different channels.
There's duplicates because you're receiving signals from other antennas that are transmitters that are out there, or other broadcasters that are carrying the same content.
Exact same, even same commercial.
and they're just, you can get ABC or CBS or whatever. They could be coming in from Milwaukee, and it could be coming in from Chicago, and it could be coming in from Rockford. That's 3 choices that your antenna is pulling in, and you're going to get all 3 of them. That's why you would have duplication, because you have different providers for it. Bob, you have your hand up?
Yes, I do.
Yes.
It turns out there is something called the Zapper box, which can record encrypted signals, ATSC3.
ZAPPER?
Yeah, Zapper box. I think it's $100, and it does have the ability to allow you to record the DRM protected content.
Okay.
Well, thank you. I'll look into it.
Now, is that I think, I should probably look that up. Zapper box. ZPP.
It's been around for a little while, but it's up to version 3.4, and it's okay. Yeah, the recording you can. Where does it say about recording? But in any event, it does allow recording of the signal.
3.4 blows the doors off a DRM. Okay. Okay. So this is an ATSC 3.1.
Yeah, it's ATSC 3.0.
But it also, it's got 3.0, so it's next gen TV.
And it will record encrypted channels, secure encrypted channels.
This is a good device. I did not know that this thing existed. Thank you, Bob.
It's the only device sold in the United States that I know of that has passed the qualifications to record the encrypted signals.
Wow. I was wondering about this, if there was such a
and
device.
Yes, you can. You do have DVR functions.
I mean, what was the roadblock on DRM and recording?
Okay, it's a little complicated, but here's what the problem is. Because of the way the law was written and the standard was written, you have to have a hardware chip in the device that has the exact correct decryption code.
Okay.
And you cannot upgrade that chip. It is not firmware. It's hardware. It's hard-coded. So if there's a change in the encryption standard, you have to buy a new device.
So the providers didn't want to put that in their TVs.
And this is what's killing ATSC3. No manufacturer has gotten the licensing, except maybe this Zapper box.
Right. Good to know. I never heard of this device. Thank you.
And like I say, I think the pricing is around $100.
Let's see, subscriptions. What's this?
Oh, you can. I think the subscription is so that you can do the recording. Yeah, it's a DVR subscription.
Right. So you could pay $30 yearly or $240 lifetime. hoping that the company will be there in 5 years, right?
Yep. And they are developing a quad tuner version.
Okay, up to 2 or dual tuners per home.
2 single or dual tuners per subscription per home.
I gotcha.
So apparently this company some way somehow got permission.
Thank you.
But there are limitations. You can only play back the shows on the same device they were recorded on. And you can only play back on the same TV from which they were recorded.
Oh,
That's
Okay.
all hard coded.
thank you, Bob. Anyone else want to discuss this subject about streaming versus cable? No. Yes, Bob? Dennis?
Just to clarify, I'm not totally sure I understood the device. So the device will pick up regular over-the-air channels, but it will also pick up encrypted channels.
Yes.
So you can get a lot more channels by using it.
Well,
And
what
it
you
comes
can get,
with DVR to record also, or you have to buy a separate DVR?
they apparently have a DVR service. I'm not clear whether it's cloud or whether it's local. I suspect that there is a cloud service, which is why there's a subscription.
Their device lets you record locally, I think, right?
Oh, let me see. Actually, they do say you have the storage device.
Right.
So, yes, you can use an SSD or a hard drive. You can attach a hard drive to this thing. So, yeah, it's local storage.
Doesn't Tableau also offer something similar?
Tableau never qualified.
Never qualified. Okay.
And it's like Silicon Dust gave up on negotiations.
Yeah, I know Silicon Dust did. Too bad because I have 2 of those.
And TiVo gave up. Channel Master was in the game, but I don't know what happened to them. I think this Zapperbucks took over the Channel Master. I don't know if they took over the brand, but they have superseded them.
Okay.
So, anyway.
And when we say encrypted channels, are we talking like HBO, Showtime kind of thing or something else?
These are over-the-air ATSC3 channels. Most are encrypted now.
Right.
If they're 4K. Most of the 4K channels are encrypted.
The encryption has to do with the data encryption for digital rights management. It's not like they're trying to keep hackers out. It's just for their own security of their data.
It's worse than that. It's to prevent you from recording and playing back on just any device.
Okay.
It has to be a licensed device. And I presume these subscriptions include some kind of a fee that goes back to the broadcasters.
Okay. But that's OTA, which we really wasn't the purpose of the discussion. But since we brought it up.
Well, it's another subscription service like streaming.
It is. Yeah. This one is particularly. I'd never heard of this particular device, but love it. It's great. Thank you, Bob.
Thank you. Yeah.
Shall we go on to our next one? The next one I had on our discussions would be home smart devices for your home. And are they worth it? What is your privacy concerns? And what do you do about when support ends? So smart devices would be your thermostat, your temperature monitors, light control, internal or external, internal lighting in the house. External to your house could be timers, water control. Could you have an irrigation system? Anyone have concerns about using, or anyone here use IoT devices besides myself? Okay, Tim and Wayne do. Wayne, what do you use for IoT devices?
Well, I've got a number of different things. I've got the, for my lighting, I've got several different, I've still got one light running on X10.
Mm-hmm.
The other is, I can't remember, it's a BM or something like that, but it works on Wi-Fi, where X10 works over the wires. And then I've got a timer for my outside lights that's programmable and adjusts throughout the season. So once you set it up, it automatically changes along with, the daylight.
Okay. Tim, what kind of IoT devices do you use?
Well, I have a home security system, and with that, I have a doorbell camera that'll even ring the doorbell if somebody gets up on top of the porch. If they're down a few steps in it won't set off the doorbell automatically. And then I have a one of the water detection devices that goes with it as well. I have at least 3 or 4 electric switches for plug-in like lights, and I have at least one Wi-Fi light. I have one camera that I sometimes use. I don't use it all the time, and they're all IoT type devices.
Okay.
Oh, the other thing I've got, I just recently went to UMA on my landline. My, AT&T is eliminating wired landlines as of this month, and I wanted to keep the phone number and have these wireless telephones in the house, so I switched over to UMA.
So is that considered an IoT?
It's over the internet.
Okay. So it's like an internet protocol phone, IP phone.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
It's voice over
And the nice
IP.
thing is, if I lose my internet, it automatically switches over to my cell phone.
Okay. Anyone else here use IoT devices? No. Okay. Why? Why? For those who don't have them, don't use any IoTs, is it you've not found the product that you needed? Or besides finances, we'll exclude that from the discussion. Maybe the person can't afford to do it. But if you could, Dennis?
It's wintertime now. If I'm cold, I walk over and turn up the thermostat. If I'm hot, I turn it down. I didn't need a Nest or other. I didn't feel I needed that. Lights. If I want the light on, I'll walk over, flip it on. So in other words, I find a lot of the things that they do are things that I could I didn't really need to have. I mean, they're like could be nice, but it's not super inconvenient for me to do it manually. The only thing I would like to do is like Tim. I would like to get a security that I would go as far as getting the security camera stuff. I would do that.
That I would say that's a great place to start is security cameras. They have them inside and outside, preferably outside. You don't need them inside your house unless you have animals that you need to monitor. I'm I'm not homebound, so my wife and I travel, and because we travel, we need to see what's going on inside the house when we're not home. Thus, the reason to have the IoT devices. We could set it up as a pet cam to see where's the cat. Is the cat eating the food? My fish, are they getting fed regularly? Is there any problems with my tank? So I could put a camera there shining on the tank, and I could see it when I'm away. Also, and I agree with you, you turn up the temperature, you could turn it down yourself. But if you're traveling, it's nice to be able to log in and adjust or put your house on a vacation setting. I ran out the door and it was the last thing I forgot to do is I didn't turn down the thermostat because we're going to be gone for a couple of weeks and I don't need the house running at high temp if we're not home. So that would be a benefit. Also, the Wi-Fi thermostats tend to be smart thermostats. They adjust to your living. They monitor how you live in the house. And if you come and go, they'll adjust the temperatures based off of your habits. And they get to know your habits. So, at night, automatically turns down, turns up before you wake up in the morning. So the house is nice and toasty. But maybe it's cooler at night when you're sleeping, which is a better way to sleep. Those are just the thermostats. Another thing they have that's an IoT device that no one here has talked about is water alarms. I found those to be extremely beneficial to have in a house, whether or not you're home all the time. A water alarm that's an IoT device can notify you any point in time if you had a pipe burst, your hot water heater decides it's going to leak, my fish tank broke, anything like that. I set up these water alarms around the house near the places that I'm going to have a problem. Underneath the kitchen sink, next to my sub pump, by my furnace, by my fish tank or something like that. And I'll have these alarms that are connected up to a hub. And if anything happens, I will get a notification regardless if I'm home or not. And I have been home when a water emergency has happened. And it's the IoT device that let me know that there was a problem. So that's equally as beneficial as a camera, a security camera. So I'll just throw those out there.
Can I ask what brand you have? I mean, I think that's a great idea myself.
And I will tell you, do your own research because the one I bought, the companies have changed them, and I bought it years ago, 5 years or more. I'm sure there's better technology incorporated in there. And what you need to do is look at how many sensors you're going to want and then get a system that can handle that. And as I listed out, sub pump, under your kitchen sink, maybe by your refrigerator has a water dispenser, your furnace, your hot water heater, all those places that you could have a problem. Great place to get a sensor and put it there. But that adds to the number of sensors you may need. Maybe instead of 3, you may need 5, you may need 6. I don't know. So I don't want to particularly answer your question. Do your own looking on them. Find which one is going to work the best for you. Research it. But I think water alarms are absolutely well worth it. And I've utilized those several times. If you own a home, you know what it's like to have a water issue. They creep up and they just happen. Not when you expect it, especially like an ice maker in your refrigerator. They love to have problems. Wayne's chuckling. He knows what I'm talking about, right, Wayne?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No. Well, we don't, since we're in a gated community, we don't worry about security like we did when we were living in a regular house. But the other thing is, because we travel, we have a cat sitter. So whenever we're gone, we have somebody that lives in the house while take care of the cat.
Okay. That's great. You can afford to do that.
Yeah.
Not everybody else is in that same boat, or they may not have a sitter that they trust. So,
right.
That kind of works into play. Dennis, in the case where you have a brother that you are keeping tabs on and helping out, you may want to set up some kind of alarms over there for them. And for any situation that could be that they're prone to fall. So you may want a sensor that could facilitate that and let you know that the situation occurred.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I try to compensate for that. I have call him and he calls me back like set times during the day. 5 times a day we're communicating.
Okay.
But I certainly like the idea, especially the thing on the big news. This Guthrie, the lady NBC and her mom got kidnapped, a month ago. Boy, and they didn't have the cameras running inside or whatever. It really kind of strikes home that things, yeah.
Yeah, and that strikes home. If they had more cameras than what they currently did, they'd have more information to go off of, but they didn't. Somebody was being conservative, and they only had the doorbell cams. All we know that they had. I personally have cameras all around the outside of my house because of the fact we're not home, and I want them running 24/7 to see if someone's going to break in or something.
They had another camera either up on the roof or out very front of the property, and that was the first ones to go. And then the doorbell camera.
Oh, you're talking about her in their situation?
Yeah.
Okay. I wasn't analyzing their situation and what their predicament is. But Dennis, you put it right. It's good to have something like that. But I did find IoT devices very beneficial. They can be problematic. And one of the things that was said there, what do you do when support ends? Case in point, Nest was bought by Google. Google decided after 10 years of supporting the Nest product line that they wanted to come out with their own tech, keep the same name, but require everybody to stop using the old technology to buy the new. So you're stuck with the thermostat that was once a smart, intelligent thermostat, but is now a dumb thermostat. So what are you going to do? Technology keeps moving forward, and not all devices are going to be supported by the company that makes them, especially if they're an off-brand. And the technology always seems to improve. You can get the video cameras for your doorbell, but the technology that they used at the time may be slow and sluggish, and they came out with a new model, better resolution, quicker, responsive. You're always going to be playing this game with keeping up with the tech.
Offhand, related to what you were just discussing there, I just heard yesterday that in France, any manufacturer of electronic stuff has to allow for old devices and repairable devices. And therefore, you don't end up with this planned obsolescence and having to get new stuff when you don't really want to buy new stuff. And that way, the old stuff keeps going, keeps repairable, etc. And anybody that has a proper background can do their own repairs.
I've got the Honeywell Wi-Fi thermostats in my house because I got two furnaces, and I've got it set up so that it shuts down at night and of course comes back up in the morning.
And the nice thing about Honeywell's is they stand behind the product. They're not going to change. Yeah. I'm quite familiar, and in some senses, I wish I would have went with a Honeywell because of the fact they're very plain, vanilla. They get the job done, yeah. And they don't give you a lot of bells and whistles, but they're reliable and they work well. Anyone else want to comment about IoT devices? Has anyone found an IoT device that they really love? I know the water alarms, I mentioned that one.
Well, I've got the one where I can monitor my electric meter. It's this rainforest device that actually reads the ComEd meter. I can look on my iPhone at any time to see what's going on.
Which is really good if you're concerned over power consumption in your house. You want to see what devices are consuming the most. What is your peak load times? I think that's a great, invaluable device. My son has one put into his house. Of course, he's much younger and he's into electricity since that's his industry. and he's able to monitor when his furnace kicks in, how much electricity is drawing, is the pump running, the furnace running correctly, because he has a heat pump set up. It is a great thing to be able to monitor your electric load in a house. Also with chargers. If you have an EV, electric vehicle, those are basically IoTs. And when you plug those into your charger, your app that's on your phone or something can control how much juice it's going to get, what time it's going to charge, when is it going to stop charging, et cetera, et cetera. You can monitor the whole thing from your phone because it is an IoT device.
Well, the problem is we're all electric. The house is total furnaces and everything. We don't have natural gas.
Okay.
So I'm real concerned with, in the wintertime is what's going on.
Right. And I don't think in a way it's not a problem because now you've eliminated the chance of a natural gas explosion. You've also eliminated the $30 a month minimum fee that you're going to get from NICOR.
Right.
Just to have the line pumped to your house. It's disgusting what they charge you just to have a line to your house. Even if you're just running it for your stove that only consumes $1 or $2 or $5 a month, you still got to pay that $30 delivery fee to get it to your house. So I don't think that's a problem. It is an incentive in a way. And if you could find a way to lower your impact on electricity, solar panels or something like that, it may work to your benefit.
Well, the one thing that kills me about electricity bills is I use almost nothing. When you look at the bill, it's all the delivery and tax, and you got, almost, $2 a bill for you for what you use and $80 for delivering. And
are you saying your electric consumption is so low?
Well, I could, in about 30 seconds, I can pull out my bill and tell you what it is, but you don't want to know the amount. I'm not saying it's $2, but I mean, it's probably less than $20. And the actual bill I pay about $40 a month for electricity. Of course, I live in a condominium, all right? But I pay about $40 a month, and it's probably about $9 of electricity being used.
Mm-hmm.
The rest is all
fees,
delivery and taxes, and
that's a similar thing that I was reflecting on the natural gas bills. You pay a lot for the delivery, and you're consuming not very much.
Right.
Unless you own a home that the furnace is running a lot more, that would be a flip side to it. In your case, you're in a condo, you're kind of surrounded by other units that help keep your unit warm. So,
yeah, and I even have a 2-bedroom condo, and in the wintertime, one of the bedrooms is closed because it's not used. So all the vents and everything are closed, so it gets a little chilly in there, but so what? It's not used.
Right.
So a third of the unit is closed up.
Is your heat electric?
Yes.
Okay. Good. Like I said, now you don't have to, in that case, you don't have to worry about a natural gas explosion. You don't have to worry about carbon monoxide building up. There's a lot of advantages to being an all-electric setup.
Yeah.
Other than the price. Okay. We kind of went into a different direction on there where I just wanted to talk about IoT devices, and we went into utility bills. All right.
Well,
next thing.
I even have it set up so that, you're talking about IoT devices, but I have it set up a lot of places where it's a motion sensor light bulb, I only turn it on when I walk by it.
Now, another thing is on IoT devices, and I really don't know how to address this, is security concerns. Does anyone have any background information or anything they'd like to share about security of IoT devices and how to keep them secure on your network? Bob?
One of my other technology groups, there is a fellow who's a networking expert, and he started talking about securing parts of your home network by actually isolating them from each other using virtual LAN technology. Virtual LAN is built into some of the better routers, and you can set up VLANs so that your IoT devices cannot talk to your computers, and so that things that don't need to get out to the internet are actually completely prevented from doing it. And these are virtual networks, so you're not limited the way you are with subnets. It does take some thinking through. It does take some setting up. You need managed Ethernet switches, and you need a router that's capable of it, or that you can substitute the firmware.
Okay.
And that will help a lot in securing your IoT devices and securing the rest of your network from them.
Right. I do think that IoT devices are the Achilles heel, that they're only as good, security, they're only as good as when they were first originally designed that day. And that's it. Because many of them will not be supported. They're not going to be upgrading. They're not going to be putting in fancy controls in them. Something like a Google backed up product, yes, that should have good security protocols put in place. But those water alarms that I was referring to earlier, those are not going to have good security in them. They're going to be subject to the security of your network and whatever implementations you could put in to protect it, which says, what can we do to protect our IoT devices in our own house? Bob said about a VLAN, pretty extensive. I can't imagine myself or anybody else trying to set that up. What else could people do?
The only thing I can think of off the hand is in routers, rather than the VLAN type, is having set up the guest account and have all the IoT devices that are adjustable use the guest account, and that way they're not into your home Wi-Fi and Ethernet network, and they're only able to go to the outside world and so forth. That might be the next best thing that I can think of if you can't set up VLAN.
And I think that is the direction I was looking to get us to go, is setting up a guest network. And the guest network has limited accessibility to your own network by its design. If your router supports it, do it. And I should speak because I personally don't have a guest network set up, but I am going to be setting one up because I just started redoing my network today because I was having some issues with protocols. So I could see this being a very beneficial. At one time I did have one set up and I had all my IoT devices on there. Very good thing to do. Most IoT devices, pretty much all of them that I've run across, work on the 2.4 gigahertz spectrum. They're not running on the 5. So that's an easy one. Isolate, limited number of channels, set that up, and just work with your IoT devices through there. Okay.
Yep.
Did I kill this one? I think so. Yeah. All right. The next thing I had on our discussion is digital photo organization overload. Now, this one is kind of dear to me because I produce and I seem to shoot a lot of pictures and I have a very vast collection and always struggling with how to manage this capability in addition to managing it with the stuff that comes off of the phones. I can manage the stuff that comes off of my camera, my digital camera, because it's a more or less I get the memory card, and I take the memory card and I plug it in the computer and I manage it. But the stuff that comes off the phone, you have to get it off the phone and put it somewhere. So how about we discuss what are people doing to manage their photos? Their vast collection. The stuff that's on your phone, how do you get it off the phone and put it someplace else that everybody in your family can see it?
Usually, what I hear in attending other meetings is using Google's photo program and have your phone automatically upload to the cloud account. And then it's up to you to decide how others get that information. In some cases, you might be able to put on additional people. Again, you have to be a little concerned about passwords. So it might be best if you're good at setting up strong passwords, you set everybody's password up and give it to them, but not through email and not through SMS text or MMS text, because those are not secured communications. And you'd be handing out license for the bad guys getting a hold of that key and faking out being your relative to view the photos. They may take them all down and use them for various nefarious purposes. So that's one of the main ones. There are some competing services to Google's, because some people don't like big tech, which is Google and all the invasion of privacy and possible use of some of your photos. So they have other services they try and set up as an alternative.
Okay. Anyone else want to comment about how they manage their photo collection?
Well, my stuff on my phone and iPad are synced together, and they're all synced to iCloud.
Okay.
I'm paying extra for iCloud storage, but a lot of the photos that I've taken in the past, I actually downloaded onto my computer, and then I backed them up to a hard drive. So I got a big hard drive with all kinds of pictures from over the years.
Okay. And how do you manage those pictures from all the years? Do you keep them on a hard drive and then you sort them by years is what you've been doing?
They were sorted by like the trips. In other words, I'd have a directory, a file directory for like a trip when we went, somewhere. And so they're sort of by years as well as by trips.
Okay. All right. And how do you get to see those pictures regularly?
Don't.
You don't. Okay. That to me is
I know.
It's the caveat.
Yeah.
For those of us that have a vast photo collection, it's how do we get to see these? If you put them if you have pictures in a photo album, you close the photo album and you put it on a shelf, you're never going to see it again.
Yeah.
All right. And the same thing holds with your digital photos too. If you put them on a hard drive and you put it away, you're never going to see them again. What's the benefit of them if you can't see them?
Well, I have a lot on my phone, and and it's by years, and I can go through my phone. I've got 15,000 photos or whatever it is on my phone, and it's also on my iPad. So I can go back 4, 5, 6 years, 10 years and look at pictures, and I do that every once in a while.
Mm-hmm. Anyone else deal with, how do the rest of you guys deal with your photo, Tom?
Well, I do it pretty much like you're saying here. I take the card out of the phone and plug it into the desktop computer and copy them over to there, and I do it by year and by location, and it's
Okay.
on my computer, so they're all together. And it's like you're saying, you put it into the album on the shelf, but how often do you want to look at them? And then they're right there. And I do have them backed up to an SSD drive also, so they're in two spots. And I can always grab the SSD and take it wherever I want to go.
And Tom, you got those good practices because of the digital photography club that we used to run. So we discussed this quite a bit in the past, and I'm still continuing along that thought here is how to keep those photos fresh and in front of everybody so you can enjoy them. What about your old photos? What have people done with their old photos that are in those photo albums? Anyone digitized them yet?
I have done that because I've scanned them on my my scanner. I've put like 6 of them on one scan, and then I've broken them out to 6 separate pictures.
Okay.
And put them out to the same disk, the same drive, I should say.
There are apps that you can use your phone to take a picture of, more or less like scanning them, and those pictures now are on your phone. You can move them through upwards into technology. You can move it off of a paper form and onto a digital platform. Has anyone tried to utilize that feature? No.
I can't think of why when I could do 6 at one time.
Well, because you can do 6 at one time. You're saying if you took a picture of 6 photos, right?
Well, a scan of 6 is what I'm thinking.
You're doing a flatbed scanner?
Yes.
Okay. Wonderful. Not everyone has a flatbed scanner. Flatbed scanner will give you a better resolution than the phone will in some sense because you're got it all laid out on there. But if you don't have a scanner, you could use your phone to do that, to digitize your photos, which is an relatively easy process to do. You just set it up at a specific set height and keep putting the pictures underneath there, take a picture, move the next one in, and keep going over and over and over, and you'll get them all done.
Sure.
I myself, I utilized a Fujitsu scanner that I bought years ago for document scanning, and I scanned all my photos with that one. To the tune of, similar to what Wayne had said, probably 11 to 15,000 photos I did.
Ouch.
Yes, scanning. And then I edited each one of those, or majority of them, I edited to clean them up. Because the nice thing when you digitized your old photos is you now have the ability to enhance the picture better than the original. You can remove the flaws that were in the picture, whether they're scratches or crinkles or somebody got an antenna, their tree sticking out of their head when you took the picture. You can take all that out, but it does take time. But it's very rewarding. You could take the picture that is my background here. I can easily clean this up, remove the haze, and make the sky brighter, the snow more of an impact, higher contrast and things like that are really easy to do with the software that's available today, like in Photoshop or the like. And it's very rewarding to do that, to see your old pictures come to life.
Well, I use my phone when we go traveling. I don't take a camera. I use the phone. And then I go back and I look at the pictures, later on when I'm in a motel or whatever. And I actually look at the pictures and actually I crop them or whatever, or straighten them up, if you've taken a picture and it's off crooked, you can straighten it up. And all that software is right there on the phone.
It makes me jealous of the software that they put on these phones. I am just jealous that it's not on my desktop. A case in point is my wife has become very proficient at taking digital pictures with her phone. Unbelievable. She blows me away, even though, I know a lot about photography. She does a better job than I do. Well, one of the things that you could do with the iPhones is you could take a picture of somebody or take a picture of a group and somebody's walking behind you in the picture. You just tap on that person and you can eliminate them.
Yep.
It's boom, like that, it's gone. You don't have to draw an outline around the person to marquee them to take them out. It literally, you just tap on it and go. There was pictures she took when we were walking our dog and she got the leash in there. She didn't want the leash. She was able to touch on the leash in the picture and eliminate the leash in a second. Unbelievable how quickly you can do some of this stuff on the phones today. They have much better technology and software built in than our desktops do.
Sanford,
Well, it also AI. I had a picture of my wife and myself, and had some sort of background that we wanted to just get rid of. So I put it on AI, and I told it to put a seasonal Christmas type of background on it. And the thing sat there and turned away for about 5 minutes. Unbelievable what it come up with.
Unbelievable.
Sanford,
Yes.
and what you said just before Wayne spoke up. Have you developed there a new way of rubbing out a person?
I have not, but it's built into the phone.
Yeah.
Well, then you found a new way of rubbing people
Yeah, I
out.
guess so. I guess it's a new way of eliminating a person. But it's just amazing. It's just like boom, they're gone. There's a
these phones. These phones are amazing what they can do. The
They
other night
are
I was
amazing.
taking pictures with when they told me that what was it, Saturn was going to come close to the moon.
Yeah.
I was sitting out there on the ground taking shots, and I thought I was taking shots of the moon and a Saturn coming close, and I was taking a bunch of the moon and a star.
Right.
As the moon was coming close to the star, I thought the star was Saturn. And I was just waiting for it to get closer and closer, taking multiple shots. And I was getting real upset because it just wasn't really looking like a good picture. I got inside after doing it for about 20 minutes, as it was getting closer. When I got inside and took a good look at the pictures, it just shocked me that I had a picture of Saturn. One of the best pictures I ever saw. You could see Saturn on the darn picture.
Wow. With your
You couldn't
phone.
see it. You couldn't see it with your eye,
Right.
but you could see it with the picture on the phone.
So the other thing is how now that you got the stuff all digitized, what are you going to do with it?
I don't know yet.
That's the question. So, do you post it up on Google and let other family members see it, or do you send them a physical drive? The idea is to share all this stuff, right? It's no good if it sits on your own hard drive and nobody sees it.
Well, for something like that, the family wouldn't care about.
True. The family wouldn't care.
Well, in what Tom was saying about with the naked eye, he couldn't see Saturn, but the camera phone did pick it up. That was true of the aurora borealis. A lot of times people couldn't see it or it was too faint, but if they took pictures of the sky, when they looked at the pictures, there was everything that they wanted to see.
Yep. So, okay, I think I kind of covered this. To me, one of the things about keeping your photos up to date in your photography collection, it's moving it forward into the next form of technology. So we want to move it forward from the paper-based into a digital base, and then from the digital base into the next digital base, or at least to be able to share it. It makes it sharing a lot easier too.
One thing I'd like to add something here.
Yes.
Have you guys seen what you can do? I know it's something I can add to this particular phone, the S24, the Ultra S24. Have you seen that they've got attachable lenses for this thing?
Yes.
Yes. I actually bought a set of lenses for my daughter-in-law once for her phone to use, telescopic ones and
Yeah.
magnifiers and things. I think she used it once.
And macro lenses.
Yes, they have them. It's like any camera. You really got to adopt it and use it.
Yeah.
And
I didn't know they had them until about, maybe about 4 weeks ago.
okay.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry about butting in.
No,
Go
that's
ahead.
okay. Does anyone else want to comment on this? So once you have all your stuff digitized, how can you show this to members of your own household? Anyone got any ideas?
I think sometimes there's capability of passing pictures to the TV.
Yes. And that's kind of what I was going to get at is you can set up your TV to do a slideshow. You just have to provide it the pictures to do as a slideshow. How you're going to do that, it depends on the TV and how you would point it to those pictures. But that is a great resource. You could put them on a USB stick. Some TVs have the ability, smart TVs have the ability to place pictures from a USB stick as a slideshow. One of the things that I did is I took an old PC and had it just run a screensaver. The screensaver being the photo screensaver that's built into Windows. And I pointed it to the directory on my server per se, but just a computer hard drive that has all the photos on it, and let it randomly display the pictures, constantly going over and over. So this way, the pictures are always coming up. We're always getting to see them. There's just a way to do this, to solve the problem. So I dedicated you could dedicate an old laptop to do this too, which would be ideal, or an old PC, and you just need a monitor and hide the PC around the corner and just let it run as a screensaver. And this way you can see the pictures. So it's solved one of the issues that I've run across in our household is I take so many pictures, but nobody gets to see them. If you put them up on a screensaver that's running 24/7, they'll show up. Okay. That's me touting on how I did it. I think we got time for one more subject. Voice, unless someone's got anything they want to add to this. No. Okay. Bert, is that you? Bert, you're muted.
All right, so that was me 59 years ago tomorrow when I joined the Coast Guard.
Wow.
And
did you scan that picture?
I have it scanned with other pictures, but it's a little more recent. That's the ship I was on and stuff.
Okay.
So having history is good if you got somebody to look at it.
Very true. And you want somebody to share it with.
But I did recently try and introduce my great-grand nephew to family history and pulled out a huge number of pictures to be able to show, the history of his only family because nobody cares. You have all these pictures, but sometimes you want to put them together in a format where people can understand history.
Which you can do if you have it digitally. You can take the time and arrange it so it tells the story.
Right.
Right.
Anyway, I just thought I'd pass that along since
okay,
tomorrow.
I thought you were telling us that it's your birthday tomorrow, so we should all wish you a happy birthday.
That's not my birthday. It's
we can all sing to you.
My insanity. Vietnam and the Coast Guard.
Okay. Since we're getting close to the end, I won't go to our next subject question. I'll say, does anyone else have any other questions for the group? Tim, do you have any announcements?
Well, I guess. Next Tuesday, the second Tuesday of the month, we'll have the TNT Tips and Tricks SIG. And we'll have a week after that the Windows Office and AI meeting on Tuesday. And double check here, I'm looking at the calendar. And on the 19th, which is Thursday of the following week, is
Recording stopped.
the Understanding Technology with Ed Keating. And on the 24th, we have the Linux SIG meeting.
Thank you. Any last questions for the group? I would encourage everybody and anybody to please take a CCS poster to your local library and have it posted on the community board to help advertise CCS. With that, I'd like to conclude